Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to my new video. So in today's video, I'm going to be talking about the latest with Iran. Also going to be talking about some stories from China and especially its up and coming trade war with EU. I'll be talking about the Philippines and I'll also be talking about Elon Musk. So a packed story today, guys. If you haven't noticed already, I've got a new channel which I've opened. And if you don't mind and go to that channel and subscribe, I would really appreciate it. So make sure you go to the description. The link to my channel is there. So this is the part one of the video. And to go to part two of the video is going to be on my new channel. Again, go to my description and the link to the video for part two will be there. Part two, we normally have in-depth discussions and high IQ discussions. So today's topic, we're going to talk about, are we reaching the end of capitalism? So we're going to talk about, obviously, Elon Musk reaching 1 trillion, while majority of the people are living still paycheck to paycheck. Is it fair? And so we'll be talking about reaching the end of capitalism because if you look at the Western countries, they all seem to be heading on a downward trajectory. So we will discuss why. And so make sure you join part two for high IQ discussions. So without further ado, let's start with the show, guys. So we'll start with Iran. And Trump has sent out another tweet. He seems to think there's going to be some sort of deal signed tomorrow. I mean, this is my opinion, guys. This is my opinion. There's a UFC match happening tonight at the White House. And I think that President Trump doesn't want any distractions from his UFC match. So he's basically been saying, oh, there's going to be a deal tomorrow. There's going to be a deal tomorrow. And I think it's mainly because of the UFC match happening in the White House. There's also World Cup matches happening as well, but I don't think he cares about the World Cup. But I think he cares about the UFC match. He's a big fan of UFC, and maybe he doesn't want to be disturbed. He doesn't want any distractions. So this is probably why he's talking about there's going to be a deal. So the Iranians are obviously tight-lipped, and they're denying there's going to be a deal. They said there's still a lot to talk about, and some Iranians are saying they're close to a deal as well. But they've, to be honest, guys, they've been saying that for months. They've been saying Iranians have been saying they're close to a deal. Then what happens? Trump changes his mind, or he gets some pressure from Israel, and he starts bombing again. It's just a circle, guys, big circle. It's just the same thing happening over and over again. So Trump sent this tweet out, and again in the tweet he's threatening nuclear war. And you can see his own words. He says, we look forward to working with Iran. Hopefully this process works out quickly, easily, and smoothly. If it doesn't, we have the ultimate alternative, hopefully never to be used again. He's obviously talking about a nuclear weapon because this is the only kind of language you will use if you're ready to use nukes. And other people have obviously, basically deciphered the message, and that's what it means. You can see from this gentleman here, Trump has just threatened to nuke Iran if they don't sign a deal tomorrow. So this deal, by the way, is an MOU. So it's a memorandum of understanding. It's not legally binding. It's not a deal like the JCPOA, which was legally binding and it was ratified, and Iran had to go through strict, inspections by the nuclear watchdog, and they were under severe like watch basically on their nuclear program. So this memorandum of understanding has a couple of lines at the beginning saying that Iran will never have a nuclear weapon. But a memorandum of understanding is not legally binding, so anyone can break it. United States can break it, Israel can break it, or even Iran can break it. I mean, it's not legally binding. It really doesn't mean anything. So even if there is a deal tomorrow, it's not nothing like the JCPOA at all. And I think there might be some sort of memorandum of understanding document signed, but it might not be what everyone thinks. I think it's going to be a very, very watered down document, very vague. And obviously, it's going to have a few words in it like Iran will never have a nuclear weapon. And it's going to say the strait is open. But it doesn't say anything like the strait, Iran cannot use tolls at the strait, or Iran cannot charge ships to go through the strait. It's not going to say anything like that. It'll just say the strait is open. But the strait has always been open, as you know, guys. And Iran has always said they're not going to have a nuclear weapon. Because if you look back to the JCPOA, JCPOA, the first line of the JCPOA said Iran is not going to have nuclear weapons. That was the first line of the JCPOA. And everything else was pretty much, Iran complied word by word with that document. It was the Americans who didn't stick by the agreement because they said that they would release all the sanctions on Iran, but they did not. Because on the JCPOA, it said we will gradually, you know, we will gradually release sanctions over time. But those sanctions never got released. So even though Iran had, they had basically stuck by the agreement, it was the Americans who never stuck by it. They always found an excuse not to release the sanctions fully. This is why you see at the time when Obama signed the deal with Iran, it was only a few years until obviously Trump came into power. So those sanctions never got fully released. Iran never had a period where they had full sanctions relief. They can trade with whoever they want. They can make money with whoever they want. They can have all their frozen assets released. They never had anything like that. And then obviously Trump got voted in, and Trump tore up the JCPOA because obviously he's very close to the Israelis, and he pretty much does whatever they want. So this agreement is not going to be like anything like the JCPOA. Like I said, it will be a memorandum of understanding, which is not the same thing, guys. And I think Trump may use that as a win. He might get that signed, and he might just use it as a win. He will say, "Look what I've done. I've signed this MOU with Iran. Iran will never have a nuclear weapon. The strait is open, and they will never have any money going through to Iran. We will not release any funds." Technically he's right. Technically he's right because it's not America that's releasing the funds. It's actually the Gulf countries, because most of the money from Iran is actually in the Gulf countries. Like there's a story that UAE has released 10 billion of frozen funds to Iran. And as a coincidence, you might realize that UAE did not get attacked, in the recent escalations. So when America attacked a few days ago to Iran, Iran fired back at Bahrain, they fired back at Kuwait and Qatar as well, but they did not attack UAE. And the reason they did not attack UAE, because I think UAE gave them some hush money, protection money, basically, saying, all right, look, we'll give you this frozen funds, just don't attack us, please. And there's stories today coming out that Qatar is looking to give protection money to Iran as well. and other Gulf countries will probably follow suit because they realize end of the day, United States cannot protect the Gulf countries, nor can Israel. And so they got no choice but to make friends with Iran. And they got no choice but to, you know, give Iran whatever it wants. Because these, coun- these Gulf countries are all puppets and they've drowned themselves in money. They're proper spoilt puppets. And most of them are cowards as well. They obviously don't want to lose their power. And when they think that Americans can't protect them, what do? They'll go crawling to Iran saying, "All right, please, we'll give you this money. Just don't attack us. We will do anything you want, whatever you want." And I think they will, give all the money to Iran. There's talk about 300 billion being paid to Iran for reconstruction. Obviously, Americans are never going to pay that. No American politician will ever agree to that. Not even Trump. And where's that money going to come from? I mean, Iran doesn't even have that much in frozen assets. I think in terms of frozen assets, I think Iran has probably got around the figures I've seen is around 24 billion. But it could be more like could go up, by maybe 36 by another 10 billion or something up to 36. But I don't think there's more than that because you have to understand that Iran has been sanctioned for more than 50 years. It's only the few years of sanctions relief from Obama that they've had, and that really wasn't even that long until Trump came along and tore up the JCPOA. So I don't think Iran has got that much money in central banks abroad. So obviously UAE has given some, Qatar's looking to give some, maybe Saudi Arabia, Bahrain will give some as well, and Kuwait. And it could total up to 50, it could even be 100 billion, because if Iran really push it and say, look, you got to pay for reconstruction and all the damages, and Gulf countries will have no choice but to pay it. And what's the other alternative? To become an enemy of Iran, and anytime Israel or America, escalates things with Iran, they'll be the target again. They're going to get bombed. So they have. It's in their best interest to keep good relations with Iran. So yeah, so it's still touch and go tomorrow whether this will be signed or not. Even if it's signed, guys, let's just say they signed this memorandum of understanding tomorrow. So what does it mean? I don't think it means anything because Israel, is still attacking Lebanon, and part of Iranian demands is for Israel to leave Lebanon and have a ceasefire with Lebanon. And they want Israel to leave Lebanon lands, and they also added Gaza in it as well. So Israel, obviously they're not part of this discussion. They're not going to abide by it. They'll keep attacking Lebanon. They'll keep attacking Beirut. They'll try and get as much land as they can from southern Lebanon. So even if they sign tomorrow, it doesn't mean anything because Israel is just going to keep breaking it, and Iran will have no choice but to break it as well. Because look what happened last week. Israel bombed Beirut and they escalated it in Lebanon, and Iran had no choice but to attack. Israel. They sent some rockets to Israel. And as a result, obviously America and Israel fought, attacked Iran back. So even if there's a memorandum of understanding, it doesn't really matter because at the end of the day, you have Israel just spoiling everything. And this is the problem. This is the trap that Trump has basically put himself. It's his own fault. He's basically trapped himself. He can't get out. He can't get out even if he tried. If he got out, if he completely left the Middle East, his political um, career is over because Israel controls everything. They control the media, control the Congress. And I'm pretty sure that, after November, he's going to get impeached. And all of these pro Israeli, Congress, Senate, all these people in the House, they'll all vote him out or they'll, impeach him. So he's got no choice but to please Israel. But if he pleases Israel, the American economy is going to get destroyed alongside the rest of the world economy as well, because you're going to have high oil prices forever and they're going to go even higher. And they're saying that the reserves are coming, basically the reserves are only going to last another month. So when the reserves run out, you're going to see oil prices shoot up to like maybe $200 a barrel. So he's just trapped himself. All he had to do was just leave Iran alone. If Israel wanted to fight Iran, let them fight Iran as a one-on-one. They would have lost, obviously, but if Israel wants to war with Iran, let them fight Iran by themselves. Why does America need to be dragged in it? So it's all Trump's fault, guys. I mean, he had really bad advice from Netanyahu. Netanyahu promised him the world. He said, "Oh, if you attack Iran, Iran's going to collapse. You're going to put a friendly government in place. Iran's going to give you all of its natural resources for free. You would control the Strait of Hormuz. It's going to be called, you can rename it Strait of America." And Trump, his eyes started flashing. When you see these cartoons where your eyes flash and you see dollar signs in your eyeballs, that's what Trump probably looked like. He saw dollar signs in front of his eyeballs. And he said, "Yeah, let's do it, let's do it." And now he's regretting it. Now he can't get out. He's stuck in the Middle East. He can't get out of this because Israel still controls. They still have the escalation um, dominance. They can stop this memorandum of understanding at any given moment by attacking Beirut. They know that. They know they can escalate things and Iran will fight back. So he's basically trapped, and he's sending these tweets talking about using nuclear weapons and stuff. But if he uses a nuke against Iran, then it's game over. So let's look at the scenarios. Number one, Iran. There's a small chance Iran has a nuke, and Iran fires back at Israel, and Israel is completely destroyed. Even if there's a small chance Iran has a nuke, let's just say 1% chance, that's still a possibility that Trump cannot, Trump cannot use that possibility because even that 1% chance, you're going to have a nuke in Israel, and it'll be all Trump's fault. And what's the other alternative? Say Iran doesn't have a nuke, then what happens is like you're going to see all the other countries just suddenly waking up thinking, "Oh my god, America is starting to nuke the world. We need to start making our own nukes." And you're going to see Russia using nukes all over Europe because they're going to see America as a crazy country nuking the whole world. So Russia's going to escalate. You're going to see nukes flying around all over the world. You might see Pakistan firing a nuke at Israel. You might see North Korea firing a nuke at Israel. Who knows? The thing is, there's a big question mark. Once you fire a nuke, you're opening up a can of worms, guys. When America used a nuke in Japan, back then, America was the only country with the nukes. But now you know, you have Russia with nukes, you have China with nukes, Pakistan, India, North Korea, you have Israel, you have United Kingdom, you have France. You have all these countries that have nukes, but then you also have a lot of countries who can make nukes immediately as well. They have all the nuke technology. There's a lot of countries in Europe that can easily make nukes in a day. And even Iran, even if it doesn't have nukes, they have the capability to make nukes. And we know Iran has many underground facilities, so they can maybe make a something like a nuke, like a dirty bomb. They can put like 90% uranium enrichment on inside a hypersonic missile, for example, and that can be used as a hypersonic dirty bomb. They can fire that at Israel. Even if we won't have the explosion like a nuclear weapon, you'll still have the fallout. And just the fallout alone will mean everyone in Israel will leave. They will just leave the country, and it's going to basically Israel will just disappear because nobody in Israel wants to live in a place where there's a nuclear fallout. So you see, look, guys, you know, once you fire a nuke, you just can't win. You're opening up a big can of worms, and there's so many possibilities that could happen around the world. So let's go to the EU now. So the EU has been a declining power for a long time, ever since they've stopped buying cheap Russian oil and gas. So now what the EU is doing is basically they're trying to start a trade war with China, obviously under orders from Uncle Sam. So recently they wanted to come to China and have a talk, and China cancelled those meetings because we know these meetings are what it's all about. Because China has, you know, the EU has already gone to China many times, and China has already had these discussions with the EU many times. And it's the same old thing, guys. EU goes to China and they start throwing about all these human rights, so-called human rights issues, which are not true. While blatantly ignoring all the human rights abuses that they do, or they allow United States to do, and they allow Israel to do. They don't say anything about that, but they like to raise, fake stuff, to China. And then they talk about overcapacity. Then they start, talking to China about overcapacity. Oh, you're making too much of this. You're making too much of that. You're making too much of this. Then they start talking about fairness. They want European companies to go into China, take all the money for free, and they don't want Chinese companies to do the same in Europe. And it's basically they think they are still superpowers. That's the thing. They order China around. They think that they're the boss. None of them turned up for any of Beijing's events, like the Beijing Winter Olympics. No European leader turned up. They all talked about human rights issues. That's why they didn't turn up. So they just want money from China. They don't really care about China. They don't even care about their own people. They don't even care about the economy. If they cared about their own people, they would do something that's in their interest, which is to get cheap energy, and that means getting cheap oil and gas from Russia again. But no, they can't do that because they are absolute puppets of Uncle Sam. So yeah, Uncle Sam obviously told them to start a fight with China, and China's made the decision. If they want to start a fight, let them start a fight. We're ready, because China has no respect for EU anymore. No respect. EU once upon a time used to be the beacon for human rights and fairness around the world. But the recent events showed that it's all lies. All these human rights things that the EU abides by, constitution is, basically centered around human rights. But when their friends, blatantly destroy human rights, they don't say anything. They don't say anything. Like what America's doing around the world, kidnapping leaders in Venezuela, attacking sovereign countries like Iran. They don't say a word, guys. Then their friends Israel, what they're doing in Palestine, what they're doing in Lebanon, not a word. Not a word, guys. But when they go to the global south, when they go to China, when they go to Africa, when they go to the Middle East, what do? The first thing they bring up is human rights. It's just one rule for, one and another rule for another. They have no respect left. No respect. That's why China doesn't respect them anymore. You know, if you care so much about human rights, then be consistent. EU is finished, guys. EU is absolutely finished. You know, and they deserve it. It's just run by a bunch of, you know, brainless buffoons. All of them. None of them are real leaders. They're just a bunch of clowns, really, dressed up as leaders. So yeah, we'll see what happens, guys. Watch this space. So the Filipinos looks like they're fighting back, and these Filipinos are trying to, go to the U.S. embassy and to protest, and they want all the U.S. military bases to be out, basically, of Philippines. Because these people are based people in Philippines who know the truth. They know, like, these US bases in Philippines are going to be used for future attacks against China. And the Filipinos are seeing the truth. They don't want to be like used as pawns, like Ukraine, to be used as human meat to be fired at China. Recently, China sanctioned the defense minister, who was basically being very anti-Chinese. Obviously, he's paid by his masters in in Washington, and he's blatantly being anti-Chinese, despite asking China for help. When it needs. For example, there was an earthquake recently, and they're asking China for help, and China helped them. And despite all the help, he's still saying, awful things about China. He goes, "Oh, it doesn't matter what China does to help us. It doesn't mean, basically they're still our enemy. They're still our enemy in the South China Sea. That land is ours." And the Filipinos, right? They were occupied by the United States, caused many, many untold amount of atrocities in Philippines. They killed so many Filipinos, and so did the Japanese. And now the current government is basically in bed with them. Just makes no sense. What was the point of Filipinos fighting and dying over these wars of independence? And the funny thing was, right, I think it was yesterday or the day before, Filipino was celebrating, the National Day of Independence from America. What is the point of celebrating independence when you're still occupied by America? You're obviously occupied because look how many American bases you have in your country. And all the guns are pointing towards China. And they're running your foreign policy. They got a puppet in place who's doing their bidding. Filipinos are occupied, and these clever people who are protesting, they know. They know what's going on. Anyway, let's move on. So this guy, this human being is now a trillionaire, Elon Musk. So I know some of you might say, okay, he's not really a trillionaire, it's just paper money. And you're right, it's all paper money. It's not cash, it's not gold, it's paper money. If the stocks crash tomorrow, if SpaceX's stocks crash, technically he's not going to be a trillionaire anymore. He might go bust. Let's hope that happens. But this guy, man, when there's people in the world, so many people in poverty, you have Americans living paycheck to paycheck every single day. They can't afford food or heating. And then you got people like him amassing vast amounts of wealth, guys. And all the billionaires are getting rich. Trump's family are getting rich. And everyone else seems to be struggling. And, people like Elon Musk never pay any tax as well. He doesn't have to pay any tax. Because the way the rich people avoid paying tax, I don't know if you guys know this, but I'll explain it to you. It's very, very simple. But what they do is they take a loan on their assets. So obviously, Elon Musk has got a trillion, not in assets, but in, paper money, basically, shares. Shares are not really assets. But, you can basically, banks will give you money. If you show them that you've got $1 trillion in shares in SpaceX, Tesla, and all these other companies, and you tell the bank, okay, I want basically 500 billion. Okay, maybe not 500 billion. No banks will give anyone 500 billion, but let's just say Elon wants a loan for 10 billion, right? 10 billion is more realistic as a loan from, one bank. He can spend that 10 billion doing whatever the hell he wants for the rest of his life. He can live a really, really good life, or he can use that 10 billion to buy other companies or, you know, acquisitions. There's so much you can do, but the main thing is he doesn't pay any tax. Because if you borrow money and you live with that money, you don't have to pay any tax on it. So these billionaires and trillionaires, they're using this method to avoid tax. They keep all of their assets and shares. They don't sell it because if you sell it, obviously you have to pay tax on it. So they don't sell it. So what they do, they borrow against it. And if you borrow against it, you pay no tax. And that's how they get away with it. So all these rich billionaires and trillionaires living life of luxury, paying no tax, while the rest of the people are have to pay tax. All the people that are working class, middle class, lower income, they all have to pay tax. All these rich billionaires and trillionaires are basically flooding with money. And these companies, they don't pay any tax either. Like Amazon, Amazon in UK doesn't pay any tax. They're basically coming into UK and stealing all the jobs, stealing all the money from the businesses. They have basically put all the small businesses out of business because everyone uses Amazon because it's easy. So all the small businesses are just are closing down and becoming bankrupt. I went to a shopping centre the other day in UK in Kent, and half the shops were empty. I couldn't believe it. Literally a shopping centre, the biggest shopping centre in UK, in Kent, and just half the shops were just empty, guys. No, no, I've never seen anything like this before. 5 years ago, everything was full. It's because people just using Amazon or online shopping. People don't go out, high street shops anymore, or they don't buy high street stuff anymore. They just buy it online. It's cheaper, it's easier. You get delivered to your own house, and even like clothes as well. Not many people go and buy clothes in shops anymore. Yeah, you get a lot of women that go to these shops and try on dresses and clothes, but they don't buy it from them. What they do, they try on dresses and they see which one fits, which one looks nice, and they order it online, much cheaper and easier. That's what they do. So they use the shops to try things on, then they order it online. So yeah, do you think this guy deserves all that money? I don't think he does. He doesn't do anything for humanity. What does it do with his money? With all this power? Does it do anything good for humanity? Did it speak up against human rights, against Gaza? Is it giving any money to Gaza? No, nothing. He's not giving any money to anyone. He's just a greedy little bastard. Sorry, sorry, uh, sorry to say that, guys. But yeah, let me know what you guys think of him. Oh yeah, by the way, he's not self-made trillionaire, by the way. His family were doing emerald mines and stuff. So obviously he was rich, and he had that. He grown up rich, and uh, and yeah, look, when you're rich, you can do a lot of stuff. You can buy, you can buy favors from politicians. Like he spent 300 billion to Trump for Trump to be elected. So he helped Trump. He used his social media platform to push, pro-Trump messages. He gave Trump 300 million, and um, and he got lots of favors from Trump. And this is why he's a trillionaire now. So you see, all this luxury we don't get. Only billionaires and trillionaires get it. So in China, it's different. So there was one guy in China. He was the mayor of the city of Haiku, and they found around $4.5 billion of gold in his house. $4.5 billion. Imagine, he's obviously been saving up all his life, and obviously there must have been some sort of corruption going on, or he must have been doing some underhand dealing, or some sort of illegal activity. So this guy had $4.5 billion of gold in his house. Anyway, he got caught, and guess what China did with him? They gave him the death sentence. That's what they need to do with the billionaires and trillionaires in United States. Because there was experiment done, guys. There was an experiment done with monkeys. I read this somewhere. I read this in a book. Basically, it's about not only human psychology, but also animal psychology. So basically, um, they put some monkeys in a cage, right? And they kept giving one monkey 10 bananas. So let's just say there's 10 monkeys in the cage. They kept giving, you know, all the other monkeys, they gave one banana each. And one monkey, they gave 10 bananas all the time, every single day. And this happened for a number of weeks. Everyone else got one banana, and this particular monkey getting 10 bananas every single day for, 2 3 weeks. So what do you think happened? I'll tell you what happened. All the monkeys just ganged up on him and beat him up. Beat him up so badly that, he didn't die, but, he was really severely injured. And that's what they do in the animal kingdom when one monkey gets more than what he deserves. So, so yeah, I mean, the time is coming, guys, when there's a huge economic collapse and people are going to lose everything. And people are even now waking up. There's a lot of people who are living paycheck to paycheck. Everyone else is basically has little or no money, while these rich billionaires and trillionaires are making all the money. So already people are saying that there's something wrong with the system. So it's not going to take too long, guys. When everything collapses, these people with a lot of money, they have to be careful because there's going to be a lot of people coming after them. Let's just say that. Anyway, that's all for now, guys. Make sure you check part 2 on my new channel. I'm going to be talking about, is this the end of capitalism? So make sure you check it out, guys. It will be quite an interesting discussion. So take care for now, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.